In 1958, economists proved with math that inflation and unemployment could never rise at the same time. It was in every textbook. It was settled science. And then the 1970s destroyed everything they thought they knew. There's a word economists use when an economy gets hit with two disasters at once: high inflation and stagnant growth, prices rising, and jobs disappearing. The word is stagflation, and for decades it was treated like a ghost story, something that happened once, a historical anomaly, a mistake that modern central banks had learned to prevent. But right now, in 2026, the ghost is back, and this time it's worse. To understand what's happening right now, you have to go back to a man named A.W. Phillips and a curve that broke the world. In 1958, British economist A.W. Phillips published a paper that changed everything. He had studied 100 years of UK economic data, and he found a pattern. When unemployment was low, inflation was high. When unemployment was high, inflation was low. It made sense. When everyone had jobs, workers demanded higher wages. Higher wages meant higher prices. When people were out of work, they had less money. Less money meant lower prices. The two moved in opposite directions, always, without fail. This became known as the Phillips curve, and governments loved it because it meant they had a simple lever. Want lower inflation? Accept higher unemployment. Want lower unemployment? Accept higher inflation. You could choose your pain, but you couldn't have both at once. For 10 years, the theory worked perfectly, and then came 1973. The Arab oil embargo didn't just raise gas prices, it broke the most trusted theory in economics, and nobody had a plan. When oil prices quadrupled overnight in 1973, something impossible happened. Inflation surged and unemployment surged at the same time. The Phillips curve was dead, and governments had no playbook. If they raised interest rates to fight inflation, businesses would collapse and unemployment would get worse. If they cut rates to fight unemployment, inflation would spiral even higher. Every lever they pulled made one problem worse. The United States tried both approaches. Inflation hit 11% in 1974. Then the economy contracted. Then inflation hit 14% in 1979. Then 13% in 1980. Americans watched their savings evaporate in real time. A dollar saved in 1970 was worth 60 cents by 1980. An entire decade stolen from people who had done everything right, saved, invested, trusted the system, and the system had failed them completely. So how did it end? With the most brutal economic decision any American president had ever approved. In 1979, President Carter appointed a man named Paul Volcker as Federal Reserve Chairman. Volcker had one mission: kill inflation at any cost. He raised interest rates to 20%. 20%. Think about what that means. If you had a mortgage, your monthly payment doubled. If you had a business loan, you were paying a fifth of your entire loan in interest every single year. Millions of businesses went bankrupt. Millions of homeowners lost their houses. Unemployment hit nearly 11%. It was the most deliberate economic pain ever inflicted on the American public. And it worked. By 1983, inflation was back below 4%. The stagflation era was over, but the cure had cost an entire generation their financial security. Now here's why this matters right now. In 2026, the IMF is warning about the return of stagflation. Oil above $110 a barrel because of the Hormuz crisis. Inflation refusing to fall, global growth collapsing, and this time, the cure is harder because in 1979, the United States had manageable debt. Volcker could raise rates to 20% and the government could survive the interest payments. Today, the U.S. owes $39 trillion. If the Fed raises rates aggressively to kill inflation, the interest payments on that debt would consume the entire federal budget. The 1970s cure doesn't work on a $39 trillion patient. And that's the trap. Raise rates, the government goes broke. Don't raise rates, inflation destroys everyone's savings. Stagflation is back. And this time, there may be no way out. Subscribe to Empire Collapse because the economic trap that destroyed the 1970s is closing again.